Now, Richard, this is the fun part.
Okay.
I'm now going to put a crystal ball in front of us. Imagine there's a crystal ball here. So looking beyond 2024 over the next 4 years, over the horizon, what do you see as the mega trends which are going to be coming through in e-commerce?
Big question. I think the first thing that springs to mind is definitely around expectations from consumers being higher than ever before.
Yeah.
And actually they will just not have any levels of tolerance.
Zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance.
Imagine them as being super divas. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Super divas.
When it comes to their expectations of retailers, expectations of delivery, expectations of the customer journey from kind of like start to finish, it's just the level has been raised. Yeah. So what does that kind of like mean practically? I think that you look at how consumers want to interact with retailers and brands now, and first things, they don't shop in channels. They kind of they bounce around physical and digital, using digital touch points in store, using their smartphones to do price comparison or look at reviews that's been inspired by something they've seen on social media, like TikTok, a video informing of a new product.
Phenomenal,
or educational.
Social commerce, as it's called, or mobile commerce, and social commerce. Yeah, that's big.
It's absolutely huge. And I think that actually kind of like TikTok has created a space where brands are able to communicate with their customers in a different way through obviously video content, but in a different way from kind of other social media platforms out there. But essentially, consumers don't necessarily think digital physical. They bounce across these different channels in a way that suits them, in the most frictionless way possible on the path to purchase for the products they want to consume. And their expectations is that retailers should be able to do that. They should be able to cater to their kind of exacting expectations.
Yeah, super divas.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be a key challenge.
I definitely think that technology is going to have a role to play in how they can enhance the customer experience, certainly around personalization.
Yeah.
So being able online to offer more personalized shopping experience, so being able to make recommendations based on, say, what Richard has looked at before or purchased before. They'll say, Richard, look at this, what do you think? Or, and that'll be down to data analytics, machine learning, everything. So I think there's a real role to play here for retailers to leverage that technology to be able to offer an enhanced personalized experience. And also something which I thought was so sort of far off into the future, virtual reality. You can see how that's going to play a bigger part, especially for apparel, for clothing, to be able to visualize yourself wearing something. Before you buy it. I mean, it's just, there's so much
augmented reality.
Yeah, there's so much possibility, isn't there, of what can be done. But I think there's still the fundamentals of making sure that you don't miss out on the basics as well. The basic elements of don't overlook the post-purchase experience, that whole, checkout to doorstep and back again, being able to offer your customers, your consumers, that seamless, friction-free, convenient choice of delivery and returns options. Because I think you're right. Consumers are going to be demanding super divas, expecting retailers to be able to anticipate their every need and meet their every need. But also, I think they're also going to be very quickly to take their spend elsewhere if they come across any glitches or barriers or anything that's going to cause them, cause a little bump in that digital journey.
Yeah, I'd agree. And just going back to the data point, retailers are collecting more and more data about their customers, whether that's through loyalty schemes or through an app or through other third-party data providers. But being able to provide a more tailored and personalized customer journey.
Mhm.
And some of that might be around more kind of accurate product recommendations, as you were saying. But
Yeah,
yeah, the retailers that are really leading the way in
yeah,
this are using hundreds of different data points
yes.
about their customers. The kind of
Quite scary.
and then it kind of feeding into the other buzzword from last year around Gen AI, and how they're using this
Ah.
data to be able to uh, look at all of those data points and then think about the next best action for that consumer, but at an
Yes.
almost at an individual level.
Yeah, and so subtly as well. It's not as
Yeah,
blunt as when you've gone on one website and there's suddenly you're being retargeted. You go somewhere else and you're still
yeah,
being targeted with that content. It's so subtle.
yeah.
I think certainly what we see around from a delivery perspective and returns is not only that for retailers to be successful to be able to offer that breadth of delivery choice and returns choice, because consumers expect the same when it comes
Hmm.
to returns as for delivery of their parcels, is that they also want that whole transparency.
Yeah.
Where's my parcel? They want notifications. They want to know exactly where their parcel is.
Hmm.
And at the moment, it's a bit of fragmented view, because you may get, if your parcel's gone with this carrier, you get
Hmm.
notifications from that, and go somewhere else, you get notifications from them.
Yeah,
I think there is opportunity to sort of unify all that and give them a single view of,
yeah.
through one portal of where their parcel
It'll make
is,
life
regardless
easier.
of carrier or regardless of retailer.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely an opportunity as well to enhance that delivery and returns experience.
Mhm. I think second
Yeah,
Megatrend.
go on.
You can't do one of these types of coffees without
Yeah.
talking about sustainability.
Oh,
So I
yes,
think
this is organic coffee and
this,
sustainable. Yeah.
but I think sustainability
Mm,
isn't going away. Consumers' awareness around whether it's kind of carbon emissions or
yeah.
ethical sourcing or kind of labor practices that the supply chain should adhere to.
Yeah.
But sustainability, I think, is going to be a key factor. Um, I think the question still remains, though, as to whether or not consumers are willing to pay for it.
Pay extra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think that's a really, really valid point. And certainly, I think the research actually touched on that point, in that there was a desire to be more ethical, but then when it came down to, the price
Hmm.
difference,
Yeah,
there was still a bit of hesitation as to, they'd have to be really hardcore to sort of, at this point,
yeah.
be willing to pay that extra
I,
to ensure it's
yeah.
ethical.
I think there's a minority. There's a
Yeah.
minority of consumers who are affluent enough to pay an
Mm.
additional expense to get the same product, but whether it's sourced ethically or delivered sustainably.
Yeah.
I think there's an issue there. I think the other thing just to bear in mind is that there is this kind of, often it's what economists call this kind of intentions behavior gap.
Yes, that's
Where
a much more eloquent way of putting it. Yeah, I think there is. At
consumers
this point, there
intend to
is.
do the best
Yeah.
thing, but in reality,
Mm.
especially at the moment, cost of living crisis, people's budgets being
It's a luxury to
under
be able to.
pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
they say and what they do in reality
Mm.
don't necessarily align.
But,
And price is going to be one of those. Yeah, is the key factor.
yeah.
When,
So we've seen bigger take up of sustainable services,
Mhm.
right? We've seen carriers invest a hell of a lot of money in updating their fleets, buying electric vehicles, whether that is van, motorcycle, cycle. Um,
Yeah.
and retailers have been looking at it. I think what we see is that our retailers, the interest is really driven by being wanting to meet the expectations of their customers, their
Hmm.
consumers, because they want to be able to offer
Yeah.
a sustainable delivery option when they come to the checkout to those customers. My gut feel is that going forward, the driver's going to be more around compliance,
Hmm. Hmm.
more pressure around compliance
Yeah.
for retailers having to meet, certain targets and
Yeah.
whatever else and report on that.
Yeah. I completely agree. So I think transparency around carbon emissions data
Yes,
is going to
yes.
be is being discussed
Mm, mm.
at boardroom level, having science science-based targets when it comes to carbon emissions. They're not just kind of saying, right, we're aiming to be net zero by 2050 without a clue on how they're going to get there.
It's coming closer, isn't it? So now it's becoming a reality. It's not that far off in the distance. So
and also having some kind of, some science-based targets that say we're on the right trajectory. And in order to get to our ambition of net zero, we will have to do X, Y, Z on the path to get there. And we are going to kind of measure our progress over time. So that kind of the transparency of carbon emissions data, the reporting of it, and science-based targets, again, really heavily feeds into logistics piece.
Absolutely.
And so much pressure to do that.
And we know that the biggest sort of offender is e-commerce, right? We see so much waste in e-commerce in terms of the level of, returns, for example, especially in clothing, a huge amount of returns. Clothing that's returned, delivery, delivery. How many, when you step out onto in front of your door, how many couriers do you see delivering up and down your street, during the day? It's
so the pressure will be on retailers
the pressure's going to be a lot of retailers, but there is a silver lining. There is a silver lining. So it doesn't have to be, trying to invest in drones or in electric vehicles, whatever, and offer those options. Click and collect, parcel lockers, they've been around for decades, yet it surprises me how many retailers are still not offering click and collect, whether that is from store or from a parcel shop. Parcel lockers now sort of everywhere. So the good news is that retailers can very quickly and easily at least get onto that path, being green.
Absolutely.
The other thing I observe, and that I've observed, is this whole idea around the circular economy and how we've seen a lot of our retailers, LK Bennett, for example, Next, I think Zara do it now, COS do it, especially in clothing. This whole idea of reselling pre-loved clothing, that circular economy of, I can see that becoming a much bigger trend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in the kind of apparel world, it's closing the loop.
Closing the loop,
Closing the loop.
Is that the technical term?
That's the technical
Okay.
Closing the loop when it comes to the product life cycle.
Yes.
And retailers taking back their products to either kind of repair, reuse, recycle, but ensuring that their product does not end up on landfill sites. Kind of into or wherever wherever they might be. So so that kind of closing the loop is really, really important. And actually feeds into probably the third.
Go on.
One of my third biggest trends, which is around marketplaces.
Yes.
And I think marketplaces in 2024 will continue to accelerate. Yeah. Part of this is to do with the circular economy and people selling into
eBay, reselling their pre-loved vintage.
eBay, vintage, lots of vertical specialists that are coming out. There's even one for secondhand Lego, brick bin. So so this is a kind of brick bin. So this is this is a kind of a Lego specialist where they just sell kind of Lego by weight, and you can kind of sell that on a marketplace. But I think the key thing here is that the re-commerce landscape is going to continue to grow. People are buying more secondhand. About 50% of consumers say that they've bought something secondhand in the last 12 months. About 50% of people say that they've sold something secondhand in the last 12 months.
Maybe that's also influenced by cost of living crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the...
Not just, sustainability.
One of the tailwinds. Not just sustainability.
But going back to marketplaces, I heard on LBC today that Shein, I don't know how it's pronounced, Shein has been valued, has a market valuation of £90 billion or dollars, one of the two. Currencies doesn't matter. But it's huge. And we know that marketplaces have always dominated the e-commerce landscape. In America, you've got, you've got Amazon, you've got Walmart. Right now, Costco is coming up in Asia, you've got JD.com, you've got,
eBay.
yeah, you've got eBay in America as well.
Yeah.
And they account for a huge amount of e-commerce spend.
Mm.
But what we've seen with our retailers is that there's always been sort of mixed feelings about, do we want our brand to be on a marketplace, But I think definitely retailers can't afford to ignore marketplaces as another sales channel.
Yeah.
Because consumers are spending, shopping more and more on
Shopping
marketplaces.
Marketplaces, for sure. Yeah. Well, we estimate in the UK, marketplaces are worth about £7 billion worth of sales last year.
Yeah.
And we predict that that's going to double in the next 5 years. And we predict that there's going to be roughly about 12% growth on average over every year.
That's huge.
It's huge. So, put in context, and of course, there's an overlap here, but in context of e-commerce, it's probably likely to outpace e-commerce over that time.
Absolutely, I can definitely see that happening, and also certainly marketplaces are a really sort of smart way of being able to expand internationally as well. So, we do see some of our retailers using marketplaces as a route to market, to expand into a new territory.
Yeah,
because it's literally set up and go.
Yeah.
You set up and you're already in the market, you're selling.
Lower barriers to entry.
Exactly. It's fast, it's low cost, low risk. It literally is set up and go. But also it's a way of being able to tap into the really fast growing e-commerce markets as well. So if you think that, I think what I've seen is that Philippines, Argentina, these markets are growing phenomenally in terms of e-commerce. They're emerging markets. And within those countries, you've got dedicated marketplaces, Mercado Libre. So that's, again, marketplaces offer a really good way as part of your international expansion strategy, being able to really get into a market quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you see them growing even more, taking over the world.
That's my third driver.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah, rising expectations, sustainability,
marketplaces.
Yeah, amongst many other things.
It's going to be exciting to see.
Absolutely.
Sadly, that's all we've got time for in today's coffee chat, Richard. But what I would say is that if you are interested in keeping tabs on what's happening in the retail industry, then please do follow Richard on LinkedIn. He's top voice on LinkedIn and Retail Economics with his weekly update on what's happening in the retail industry. So thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you.
And I'd say let's raise our coffee cup and hope for a positive and prosperous 2024 for British retailers.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.